My point for this video is for us to understand the difference between a good idea versus a God idea. Okay? Because in the kingdom, as children of God, we are given so many different ideas, especially if you are prophetic. So it is so important for us to understand what's coming from God. Is it us, okay, or is it the enemy? Okay, so a good idea could definitely still come from God, but it's just not, something that God is calling you to focus on. Okay, just because it's a good idea doesn't mean he's calling you to pursue that thing. You understand? A very important reason why we need to know this is because we can get a prophetic word 5, 10, 15 years prior, and because things are taking so long, we can try to, we want to help God. We want to help bring that promise into fruition in our lives. So we'll begin to grasp things that may be a good thing, but it may not necessarily be a thing that God has called us into. The thing that the mindset that causes us to want to, jump ahead of God or help God out, that is the wilderness mentality, is the poverty spirit or the poverty mentality. And it's also the hustle, the hustle and grind. Like, we feel like we have to go and make a thing happen. When the word clearly states that the promises of God are going to come to pass, but it's going to be not by might, not by power, but by the Spirit of the living God. So we're not going to have to hustle, manipulate and try to make these things come into fruition. Okay, it's going to be a matter of faith and patience, and continuously building that relationship with Christ. And like I was saying before, this can happen when we are just tired of waiting. Okay, we feel like we want to jump in and, maybe God needs some help, or maybe I haven't been doing what God has called me to. Maybe that's why things are flowing so slowly, into my life, when really it could very well be that timing is not right. Okay, and that God has to get you prepared and align you, get you in position and align you for the promise. Not only you, but the people and other things that are attached to the promise. So there are many variables as to why maybe that thing hasn't come to pass yet. In time is the main thing. Okay. So let me give you this little story. I have 2 or 3 stories actually. I was promised a home. I know it's been over 15 years ago, and I have tried so many times to start the process to move forward in this home buying process. Well, just a few years ago, I tried it again. And let me see how I want to tell this. I had this dream, and the Lord it was like a forewarning, don't settle. Okay. And there are much more things in the dream, but I don't have to share it all. But the dream was basically telling me not to settle. Well, just a few weeks later, the dream that I had, that opportunity came, and you know what I did? Because I have been waiting so long, and I'm tired of waiting. I jumped on that opportunity. God promised me a home, and the opportunity presented itself. So I was like, yes, this is the God idea. And because I had become, excited and all emotional, I completely forgot about what he had showed me a few weeks prior. And I'm full speed ahead. I got to get my credit together. And I was even willing to do my taxes, because I hadn't filed my taxes. And I know that would have been a disaster, because I don't know how to do that. But I was going to do it anyway, just how I could get the process started. Well, needless to say, it fell apart. It fell apart. It didn't happen. The broker, she just disappeared in thin air. Okay, it just came to a halt. She was telling me how to, get my credit score up because I needed it up about 10 or 15 points. She was like, do this, do that. I had connected to another source to assist me with my credit score. And, I was just ready. I was just like, this is it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. So when she disappeared in thin air, that is when, like, my eyes were open and I realized, dang, God told me not to settle, that this was not the way to go. Okay, so that seemed like a good idea, right? I had someone to help. She was willing. She said she had been doing this for 37 years. And I had some things on my credit that I was willing to, pay off or whatever. And she was saying, no, you don't have to do that. After X, Y, and Z time, you don't have to worry about just, okay. It seemed like it was just falling in place. But she disappeared into thin air. I don't know what happened. She's not answering the phone, all types of things. So I found out that was not a God idea. That was my idea. That was something that I wanted. Okay. So, and then I was thinking about how recently, just a few days ago, I was thinking about how pay attention to this. How all of the celebrities, many people's fortunes are being shaken up now because of fraud. Okay, a lot of people are being exposed, and all I could think about was, God saved me. He kept me from that, because even though I may not have tried to, do something wrong with my income tax returns and, all this stuff, I very well could have made a mistake, because I've never done that before. But I was going to try it. I was just going to do it. I remember I stayed up 2 nights trying to get it done. And she received it. She was like, this is fine. But now that I think about it, I don't think that was a smart move. So even a good idea can turn into a bad idea, especially through manipulation. Okay. Now I want to give you another example of, this is not as extensive, but I remember in one season, myself and my older daughters were waking up. It was like every morning we had new ideas, new business ideas. They were just coming. And the idea that came to me was a balloon business. Okay, God had never spoken to me about a business concerning balloons. Maybe some type of event planning could have been done, but never about, a balloon business. But this just was, it was a good idea, is all I'm trying to say. But it was not a God idea. On the surface, we would have been the only business in town that offered, this balloon service. The supermarket does. And then, you have the Dollar Trees and the Dollar Generals. They offered the balloon service, but we would have been the only business, focused on selling balloons and all of that. So it probably would have been a lucrative business, but I knew that was not something that God was calling us to do. And I found out that good ideas can become a distraction, okay? Because they will take you off course from what it is God has already called you to, that thing that you are supposed to be focusing on. Especially if he has already said, I want you working in this. And then this other good idea comes, and now you've kind of put this thing over here down, and you're focusing on the balloon business, when maybe the balloon business will come later, in years down the road. So this is when you have to take these good ideas back to God and see what he says about these good ideas. Maybe he'll tell you to shelf them, and maybe he will tell you to throw them away. Okay, so that was just another good idea that I had one morning waking up. And so for scripture, we're going to talk about Mary Magdalene when she came to, I can't remember whose house it was, but Jesus was sitting at the table, and she had a alabaster jar, and it was worth a year's worth of wages. And Peter was fussing. He was just like, why can't you just take this oil or this perfume and sell it? He was like, it just makes more sense. You could even, feed the poor. But we know Judas's intentions were because he wanted, the money, or jealous or whatever. But what Mary Magdalene decided to do was to break it open and pour it on Jesus. And she was preparing him for his burial. Okay, so selling the oil or the perfume, if you didn't have much, that would have been a good idea. Okay, but the God idea was what Mary chose, and that was to pour her oil out on Jesus. Okay, so that was a good idea and a God idea. Okay, so if you would like to go in and read that, that would be a good example for you. And the reason for this video is that, God is working in our finances, and he very well may be calling you to, hone in on your credit. Okay, now God, yes, he can do things. I have seen God do things without people even looking at my credit. Okay, he can do that. But he also may want you to, get things in order, because he is ready to bless you. And like I said earlier, if you look at how all the celebrities, so many people are being exposed for fraud, and they are losing their fortunes. And we understand that the wealth of the wicked is laid up for the just. So he is trying to get us to get us in alignment with what he's doing in the world. Okay, so if he's telling you to, I need you to work on your credit. Okay, I need you to stop spending. I need you to pay this credit card off. I need you to begin to budget. Okay, these things are God ideas. All right, and he's preparing you for the transfer. So how do we know if we're dealing with a God idea or a good idea? Well, if it is a God idea, it is going to stay with you. No matter how many years have passed, it will continue to resurrect or show itself in your life. Okay, you will continue to have dreams. God will send people into your life to, speak of that thing or give you direction concerning that thing. It will continue to resurrect until it manifests, until it shows itself here on earth. So that's the main way. Just say, for instance, when it's time to purchase a home or a vehicle or a vineyard or a building, any type of real estate, or, whatever God has called you to, resources will be available. They will begin to show up. The people, the angels that are assigned to you and this assignment, they will begin to show up. Your destiny helpers, people, God will begin to line people, places, and things up just for you. Now, that doesn't mean that it won't, there won't be a process, that it may not take a little time or whatever, that you may have to pray through some things. Okay, we can't rule that out, but definitely provision will be made. That's the second thing. So one, it will remain. It will never fade. It will continue to resurrect itself in your life. And two, provision will be made readily available for you. Okay, and I have seen things just flow. Okay, so that could be a possible number three. When it's time, things will just begin to flow. Okay, And if it's just a good idea, before it's all over, you can find yourself in the hustle, or in the striving, or maybe even a little bit of, manipulation in trying to make that thing work. Okay. So that's how you can kind of look out for, or determine, or weigh out if if the idea is a God idea or a good idea. Okay. Thank you for watching. I hope this helped. Talk to you later.